Hello, everyone. Welcome to another brief lecture for Philosophy 101. This is chapter 3 of Philosophy of Religion. So we're continuing our discussion for arguments for God's existence. In chapter 3, there is a discussion of the non-standard arguments for God's existence. Not that they are any less important, but in chapter 2, we talked about the well-known arguments for God's existence that rely on first causes, the design of the universe, the ontological argument. Here we'll talk about some of the other arguments for God's existence, as well as some criticism. So as always, please be sure to have a go at the reading. I think it did a pretty good job of talking about those arguments, some of which I'm sure you have heard about, especially Pascal's wager, which is the first one. So many people have discussed Pascal's wager. It is, as the crash course video shows, a version of it is in the Indiana Jones movie, or one of them. It's in, is it the Temple of Doom, I think? Now I can't remember. I think it's Temple of Doom, if you've seen the Indiana Jones movies. But it's also, a version of it has popped up in many different popular culture references, as well as other philosophers' work. So it's a very well-known argument for God's existence. It's essentially a cost-benefit analysis, and we talk about Pascal's wager a lot in probability theory, in statistics. So there's lots of different contexts for this argument to be applied. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about the argument for God's existence from religious experience, which I think still has a lot of intuitive cachet for a lot of people. I still hear a lot of people make arguments for God's existence based on their own personal experiences with claims to the divine. Okay, so again, we talked about the theoretical arguments, the a posteriori arguments, which come from observation and experience. So the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the argument from design, right? So we spent some time on that in the prior lecture. And then a priori arguments, these are arguments from reason alone, right? And then we talked about reformed epistemology. And now we want to talk again about non-standard arguments, arguments from religious experience. And then we'll talk about in subsequent lecture, arguments or reasons not to believe. Okay, so Pascal's wager is often misunderstood, I think. So we'll try to do it justice here.